Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So again, we're going to be using this Festive Foliage A4 stamp set, and this is from Creative Stampin' issue 101. So this is the other cards that I wanted to create in my previous video, but I decided just to pop them into their own video. So what I've done is taken two pieces of navy blue cardstock here, and this is going to be another way to use your stamp set, do some heat embossing, but rather than having a ink blended background, I'm just going to simply heat emboss onto some coloured cards. And I really want this to kind of show you that you can create quite simple cards. I just want to show you lots of different kinds of cards that you can create using this stamp set, because there's just so much you can do with it. This is also going to be a really great design that you can mass produce. So we send a lot of Christmas cards each year. You don't always want to be sending lots of different cards, so every single card is different, of course, unless you want to do that. But this is going to be great for just mass producing, because this is just some really simple heat embossing. So let's get into creating our card. So I've already picked out the stamp. So this is literally just going to be two stamps on this card. So it's not going to be anything kind of extravagant here. There's not going to be tons going on. I've already cut my navy blue cardstock down. This is 4 by 5 1/4. So this is going to go on an A2 sized card. So I'm going to have my wreath down there. I've picked out my sentiment from the Textures Sentiment stamp set that came with it, and we've got here "'Tis the Season." So I'm just gonna briefly kind of show you how this is going to look. So our card is literally going to be something like that. It's going to be really quite plain and simple, but I think it's going to make a really beautiful card. So I'm going to pop in my cardstock. So this, it has a weaved pattern. This is the Craft Perfect by Tonic Studios. It is weaved on one side and almost smooth on the other. For this card, because I'm going to be heat embossing, I'm going to use the smoother side. Because I am using my Misty tool, I will be able to ink this up multiple times to get that real solid stamp that I'm looking for, or just to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to use the smooth side of this card. So I'm going to use my anti-static powder bag just to stop the embossing powder sticking anywhere I don't want it to. And then I'm going to just work out my placement, because I need to be able to fit my sentiment in, and I want it to kind of fit nice and snug. So I'm happy with that placement. So now we can stamp this using our clear ink. So that's stamped really beautifully, but I am going to stamp it just a second time. I like to make sure that I'm going to get that real great sort of crisp stamp. So I just kind of run my fingers all over it just to make sure that I'm applying even pressure. And again, because this is textured, so it does have texture on the other side, I want to make sure that I do get, you know, every little bit of this. So I'm going to take that out my Misty. I'm going to pop that to one side, and now I'm going to apply some silver embossing powder. So I've got a scrap piece of paper here to catch my excess embossing powder. This is the Paper Mania Silver, and this is just going to sit really beautifully with that navy blue cardstock. So there's my panel. So I have got just a few little spots where I've got some embossing powder, but I'm really kind of not too worried about that. But I love just how that silver and that blue works perfectly together. So I've still got my stamps in my Misty, so I can go ahead and stamp and heat emboss my second card front. So here are my two finished panels. So I decided to trim these down because I had a lot of space up here and I didn't quite like how it was looking. So I've trimmed this down. So this is now 4" by 4" square. So you can see these are both exactly the same. They've both been heat embossed, and just that silver embossing powder looks so beautiful with that navy. So this is just a different take on your Christmas cards. If you don't want to do something traditional, you can of course do something completely different. The card bases I've cut these down to 4.5 by 4.5, so it's going to give us a sort of nice white border, but these are kind of a hammered design, so these are textured, and it is sort of slightly off-white, so I think that'll go nicely with that silver embossing powder. So I want to add a little bit of dimension onto here. I don't want to add as much as what I did to my previous cards that I created, because I used then my roll of foam pads. I felt like it was just a little bit too much dimension to really what I was kind of looking for. I was looking for something just a little bit more simple. So I'm just going to use the last of my Simon Says stamp Big Mama foam tape here, and I'm gonna add this then onto my card bases. So I've actually just used the last of that, and I've only got enough to have one strip, so I'm really carefully just gonna peel that off, because what I've got in the Big Mama foam tape and then with my Scotch tape is just very slightly different thicknesses. My new tape is just marginally thicker, so all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add this last Big Mama foam tape to that piece, and then I'm gonna crack out my big Scotch tape here. So I'm not sure whether this is, oh, so it's terrible, which is quite, that's quite nice, because it means that I don't always have to have my scissors out, so I can kind of just add what I need to and then kind of rip off what I don't. So that Scotch tape is super easy to take off. It doesn't require kind of too much to take these off. Sometimes some of them can be quite fiddly, but that one's not too bad. And we can just add that onto our card base. So I'm just going to add my last one onto here, and we can just add then some finishing touches to finish off these cards. So to finish these cards off, I'm going to use a little bit of my Ivory Seashell Nouveau drops. So I'm not going to use my kind of bling, because I think I don't want something that is kind of clear. I want something more like these Ivory Seashell drops that I know I can get. So I'm just going to add just a few drops just kind of around my sentiment. Let's just bring them over slightly on this card. So again, it doesn't matter if they're exactly the same, because they'll be going to two different people. But it just sort of finishes it off quite nicely. We can just tap them then, and that will flatten those out. So there is two more cards using the Festive Foliage stamps from the Creative Stampin' issue 101. So this is just a really clean and simple, quite an elegant design. All you need is a little bit of silver embossing powder and then just some blue coloured cardstock. This would look beautiful if you wanted to do it in sort of a bit more classic colours. You could use red cardstock with gold embossing powder, or you could use then sort of a really nice sort of deep green colour as well, and it will go perfectly with these. If you want to just make some really quick and simple cards, this design is going to work for you. So if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on any future videos. That's going to be it today. Thanks very much for watching, and happy crafting.